is far more important than trying to comprehend some obtuse, strange concept. So, and she tells us right up front, if you think you're going to be able to understand that, you are mistaken. So she herself says, don't worry about it, basically. But let's see what we can at least find out about the Lords of Karma.
Who are the Lords of Karma?
That's what we're trying to figure out. It's a concept that is thrown around in New Age circles, and we didn't really explain that. The Lords of Karma is an idea that we hear about and people talk about, and we want to bring some clarity to what that is. What the Lords
Mainly
of Karma
so
is.
when you come across the term in something else, Lords of Karma, you're not completely off guard, and you at least have some concept. Okay, so a little bit later in this explanation of hers, she says, now, the first, the second, third, or primordial seven, or Lipika, are all one. They're all one. When they emanate from one plane to another, it is a repetition of as above, so below. They are all differentiated in matter or density, not in qualities. The same qualities descend onto the last plane, our own, where man is endowed with the same potentiality, if he but knew how to develop it, as the highest Tian Chohans. The Tian Chohans are one of the highest levels of achievement in consciousness in our system. So the Tian Chohans would be those beings who are in charge of our planetary system and our universe, or our solar system, rather. Those are the highest levels of intelligent beings over our solar system. Then she says the Lipika proceed from Mahat.
I haven't heard that term before.
Mahat. No, this is different.
Different.
This is a principle, and it's
What?
it's more like the higher levels of consciousness. So what we would call consciousness here on this physical plane, Mahat would be the equivalent at a much higher level. So just like we call intelligence here, would be equivalent to intuition on a higher plane of existence. So she says the Lipika proceed from Mahat and are called in the Kabbalah the four recording angels. In India, the four Maharajas, those who record every thought and deed of man. They are called by St. John in the Revelation, the Book of Life. They are directly connected with karma and what the Christians call the Day of Judgment. In the East, it was called the Day after Maha Manvantara, or the Day be with us. Then everything becomes one. All individualities are merged into one, yet each knowing itself, a mysterious teaching indeed.
Wow.
So she's talking about a far distant point in the future when we basically have all achieved something even beyond nirvana, where we all become one, and yet we retain our sense of individuality. So I'll repeat that. Then everything becomes one, all individualities are merged into one, yet each knowing itself, a mysterious teaching indeed. But then that which to us now is non-consciousness or the unconscious will then be absolute consciousness. Okay, so basically it's just to point out that the Lords of Karma are not individuals. They're not people, they're not beings as such. It's a concept of that which exists. And it's very much tied to what we discussed last time as the Akashic records. So that is the nature's way of recording everything that has happened. So that the recording angels is not angels, it's not people, it's nature recording everything that we think and do and everything else that occurs in our solar system. So, and in the universe, not just here. So it's a principle rather than individuals. Okay?
Got it.
Got
it. Got it.
That's it, and that's the end of our deep doctrine today.
Now let's bring it back up to the surface level and talk about
Don't test us.
practicality.
Yeah, we won't test you on that.
No, the reason why we wanted to see what HPB had to say on the matter is because some people believe that there's a group of spirits out there or angels that are up there keeping tabs like Santa Claus does, and the lords of karma determine they're punishing you. We're going to put Jerry in this tough familial situation for this lifetime and see how she does and laugh at her when
Thanks a lot.
yeah, exactly. But no, that we wanted to make it clear that there's no one doing that.
this.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
You're doing it yourself.
Well,
You're judging yourself. Yeah.
hey,
He does. He points a lot.
he points a lot. But no, go ahead.
No, it's just like, oh, go ahead, Emma. I'm like,
Go ahead.
I want to say so much.
Isn't karma,
Yeah,
karma like reward and punishment, like heaven and hell? Like if you don't do it right, you're gonna go to hell.
It's cause and effect.
Well,
yeah.
Not from this person, from the theosophical tradition. No.
it's, in other words, the day of judgment, you're the judge.
Right.
It's not somebody else judging
Right.
you. Whatever you have created in the past, you're the one who has to deal with it. So you're your own judge.
Right.
And you are going to work it out slowly or quickly, depending on you. And it's all natural law. It's all just part of how nature works. So, and there's nothing about it that's eternal. Everything is transitional, and it will all come to complete, absolute balance in the end. It will be balanced to every jot and tittle.
We hear from time to time that heaven is a place on earth. That's even a song from the 80s.
Yes.
It's a song. There's a commercial. Like, still,
Well, the opposite.
insurance commercial.
There probably is. I've seen that. And hell, and the opposite is true as well. And that's karma.
Now, remember,
That's karma.
in our discussion about the period of time after death, Bardo, we talked about two different states of consciousness. And one was the Devachan, where all of our unresolved emotions have to even out or be
Kamaloka.
resolved. What did I say? Oh, Kamaloka. Yeah. Kamaloka is the desire world. And then Devachan later, assuming we have merited that, would be what Christians may call heaven. That's an extremely pleasant period of time where you're basically in a dream state. And everything about it is filled with bliss and just the most exquisite feelings of kindness and love and appreciation for everything. There's nothing at all difficult about
You
it.
could say that those are the results of karma.
So yes,
The results of the
in that
vibration.
sense, and that again is temporary for one single lifetime. So each time that
In
occurs.
the end, aren't we obligated to do right? I mean, in order for everything to balance out in the end, we've got to do it right.
Well, yes and no. I mean, you've got to do it right, but you're given as many opportunities as it requires. If it takes 10,000 lifetimes, you'll be given 10,000 lifetimes.
That's what free will is. Of course, we hope that everyone will do the right thing. And if they don't, they cause pain and suffering. But remember, the more we do that causes pain and suffering, the more just like he just said, the more situations we'll be in that are painful and suffering for us until we realize, hey, I can change this myself. So we hope everyone will make that choice. Yes.
But realize too that it isn't strictly as individuals, because as group nationalities and ethnic groups and families evolve, it's the leaders who set the pace, and the others may be kind of straggling behind, but it becomes easier and easier for them because everyone else supports them and helps them. So the leaders have the hardest path because they're the scouts, the pathfinders, the ones who blaze the way, the trailblazers, and that's the hardest. The ones who follow and come along afterwards have an easier time of it, but it's just the way life works. So it's not like there's a huge gap between the first and the last because the last ones have it easier. It's just that there are people who do go faster and there are people who go slower.
Right.
All right. So let's see, we covered a lot of this in the first session. So let's go down. Distributive karma, we've been weaving through. Distributive karma is synonymous with group karma. And that's a thing. Group karma is a thing. Groups have collective karma. We can also call it that. Karma that groups create.
Now, one thing we did mention last class, but I will reiterate, is that you personally are responsible for your individual personal karma. That's what determines at what point you can get off of this wheel of life and death and rebirth. And once you have eliminated personal karma, then you will move on to another step in evolution. The group karma will continue as long as there are any human beings left. So that gets whatever your share of that karma exists only while you're a part of that. If you're a Catholic, or if you're a Boy Scout, or if you're an American, or if you are, whatever other
A male
group, male
versus a
karma,
female.
you share in that karma only as long as you're a part of that group. Once you step out of it, like some things you can choose to get out of, like your religion, for example, then you're no longer a part of that, or a Boy Scout. You're no longer,
Or family.
or family. Yeah,
You know?
Sometimes people remove themselves from their family.
I did.
I love the way Terry describes it, though, and he actually can articulate this. You don't necessarily have to just cut it off, which you can, of course, but I think this is right from your own brain there. You participate in the karma of that group based upon your degree of identification with the group.
Oh, that's
a good
well said, yeah.
For example, several of the masters, most of them are in male bodies. I'm not sure why that is actually, but the masters or the adepts, the enlightened beings that give us a lot of these teachings, are in male bodies. However, I bet they don't identify with masculinity as the typical guy on the cover of Men's Health magazine might.
GQ.
So the fact that the master Moria or KH isn't, or that guy up there, that's Maitreya? They probably don't identify with that masculinity that a lot of men do, so then they would not be participating in the male gender's karma to the degree that the super macho guy would. Right.
I believe, and it's just my own speculation, that the reason for that has more to do with the social implications of our current world, and the fact that men are able to travel and interact much more freely than women are. There is no restriction as to, what body they can be born into, because they have eliminated their personal karma, or they're getting very close to that point. So they could choose to come back into a female body if they want to, but it is still more difficult for societal reasons. So in the future, I suspect we will see more women, people choosing to be born in women's female bodies as an adept. because there are things that can be accomplished more easily than in a male body.
To look at distributive karma from a different perspective, the country's karma. So our country generates a ton of karma based on the things we do. We love to meddle in other countries' business. We love to talk down to other leadership regimes. So someone who's very, very patriotic would participate more in the karma of our country versus someone who's less patriotic. That's an example. And you can apply this to any group that you find yourself a part of, any group. Ku Klux Klan karma, for example. Major karma, right?
Yeah, major.
Race karma. Yeah. Let's see. Even the Theosophical Society has karma.
Yes, well,
Really?
most definitely.
Any group does.
Yeah, but every group, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Not all of it good.
We
I thought karma was non-judgmental.
let's talk about world peace. Is world peace possible? Do we think it's possible?
Yeah.
Okay.
With or without
It's not
mankind.
impossible.
Right, there you
So
go.
without what?
Yeah, I mean,
You have to have
will
one.
the concept, what is the word I want, of peace happen? It's not that it won't happen. I just believe that I look at everybody in the world, I don't look at all of them, but there's karma being generated all over the place, everywhere. Okay, so I think of all these billions of people thinking along the same line, to create peace, and I don't see that happening.
Actually, the next question is, what would world peace look like?
Actually, before we jump to that, I didn't see a couple of questions that we had online. I was ignoring our online students. Oh, Rhonda said, "Don't get me started." She was probably talking about religions or country karma. And then Constance says, "Good evening, gentlemen. Once you clear your part of the group karma, will you slowly move away from those people?"
Okay.
Well, I think it's the other way around. I think you need to slowly move away from those people, and then the group karma will be cleared. It's the other way around.
Yeah, it's just like you said. Once your identification with that group dwindles to the point where you can step out of it, then that's the end of your karma involving that group.
But
And
we'll go back to peace, though.
Okay.
Is
Yeah,
what
oh,
we
yeah.
said?
So how would we even envision world peace? It sounds to me kind of.
Would it
go
be
ahead.
individual to the person? Could you make that, not using the word judgment, but can you make that call on yourself? Because somebody might say no, and another person might say, yes, I do feel world peace. Because you can listen to people talk and all they see is the negative in the world, and then you can look at somebody else and see all the positive there is in the world.
That's a good opinion. We're asking, what would world peace mean or
Right,
look like?
so it
I
should
don't
be
think it
two.
could be countries. Then it's still conflict. It's just separating yourselves. I think borders would have to disappear. Same as racism along those lines.
It's just the thinking.
We have to be one more of a thought way to think, because if everybody's thinking that way, it's peaceful. But as long as you have borders, I don't think that's going to be possible.
So are you saying that it's not going to happen in the next 6 months?
Depends how fast you get me in power. That's all I see.
So
So my question is, what does the word peace imply? Because peace implies that there's conflict. So karmically, doesn't one have to be solved before the other can fall into place?
well, I'm kind of the opinion that world peace is not only not possible, but it's not a good thing, because what
What are we
it
learning?
basically implies stasis, that there's
Right.
nothing happening,
Exactly, so what are we
That's
doing?
never-
stagnation.
Yeah.
Well, how do we make progress? By fighting and I don't mean just by conflict. I mean we have to push ourselves sometimes.
interacting.
And by recognizing.
And
we
by
have a choice.
breaking, asserting ourselves sometimes, and then we have to go back and fix it and repair it. But without trying something, we're not going to make any progress. So to me, it kind of implies there's nothing there's no progress being made. There has to be some kind of tension. Life is about tension. Keep that in mind.
Can it just be about helping people?
About
That's
what?
progress,
Helping
when you
people.
try to help do something.
I think where world peace becomes a reality is inside a particular individual. That person can be at peace and can be radiating this peaceful energy that affects positively everyone around him or her. And I think that's the only real concept of world peace that is actually possible or helpful at this point in our evolution.
Going back to what you said about, if you can't do something about it, then don't do anything about it. So that you're creating
Exactly.
your own.
And the things we do want to develop are compassion, kindness, non-judgment,
Right.
helpfulness. Those are the qualities that we develop once we get to that level of awareness.
So why can't we ultimately have that kind of world where everybody manifests?
Well, it would imply that we have all achieved perfection as human beings.
So that's the end.
So then we go on to the, and
And
once that does happen, then we go on to another
Okay.
level of it.
I envision.
Yeah, absolutely. No, we don't ever, there is no final end. There is no point at which, okay, we're done.
We go to Saturn, the Lord of Karma.
There you go.
Of course.
Okay.
Mom, since we all entered this human realm at different times, so many of us are ahead and so many of us are behind, and we'll all reach that place where we have enlightenment at different times. And yes, we've even heard from HPB that at some point, all of humanity will have reached that place, but then there won't be any more reason for physical existence. Because if we remember, the reason that we're here in the first place is to have this interaction. God or the absolute or the divine, whatever we want to name him, her, it is perfect. It is equilibrium, as we talked about. And there's no growth at that level because there's no polarity. There's nothing to resist or push up against. Now, everything in the physical world takes interaction, sometimes fierce interaction. And when we've figured it all out and we are all enlightened yogis meditating all day long, why take a physical body?
Right.
As Terry mentioned, we will have no reason to be reborn. We'll be free from the wheel of karma, the karma chakra. That's what is referred to. The process of reincarnation is a wheel of karma. You're back until you learn everything. So karma and learning and growth are intertwined.
Yeah,
But we are that is the direction that we're going.
right.
But the key here is, how can we wish for the countries and the world to stop fighting when we fight with ourselves? That's the takeaway, the key takeaway. We look inside of ourselves. Do I have conflict here? If so, we can't hope for the 7 billion other people to stop fighting out there.
Keep in mind, in the background, there are the cycles of life.
Right.
One is an active cycle, one is a resting phase. And all of nature goes through this. We have cycles that last a billionth of a second, and we have cycles that last trillions of years. So nature does exactly the same thing. It is very active for a period of time, and then it all slows down, and then it goes into a phase where nothing is happening. But that doesn't mean there's no existence. It's just in a period of repose. And then eventually the desire or the need to become active again reasserts itself, and manifestation happens again, polarity happens again, creation happens again, and it all starts the next phase.
I think it's important to mention too the idea of country karma. Again, I know I've brought it up several times, but a lot of times the United States tries to improve conditions from our perspective in other countries. We try to go and change things and make things the way we think it should be
Through
in
our
other countries.
filter.
Correct, exactly. So there are several things at play here. First of all, we're judging. And we think everyone should look like us and do things the way we do. And that's, first of all, certainly not the case. But Terry posed the very good question the last time we ran this study course. So how do we consciously try to assist other countries and improve their conditions in countries that are less fortunate from certain perspectives than we are? Well, it's not by force or by war. It's by education. And it's a much different process. We don't have any quick results than we would by, going in with guns blazing and trying to change the regime and install our own type of government. It's by education, so it's a lot different. It looks different.
Teaching them to fish.
Instead of giving them fish.
Remember, in the 1800s, imperialism was a huge concept worldwide. Developed countries were going into undeveloped countries and taking over the infrastructure and taking out all of the wealth and all of the resources and sending them back to their native country, all under the guise of helping these poor, unevolved individuals. And even importing a different religions, thinking, well, these poor people, they're so, primitive that we can bring a much higher religion to them. So the concept is we are better than you. We're going to show you how to do things. And it doesn't work. It worked well for the countries that took over these countries. They ended up fabulously wealthy, starting with the Spaniards when they came into the New World and gold and riches and all of the stuff they carted back to Spain. Worked real well for them. Didn't work so well for the native people. And it's the same even today when we go into a country that we consider underdeveloped or third world. Yeah. If we would teach them how, sanitation and teach them math and
medicine,
other things, that's the best thing we could possibly do, but we don't. We're much more interested in what money we can extract from the capital. Yeah.
Kind of sounded like the Peace Corps
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there is a right way to help people, but we need to always check our motives. What's our real motive? Is it about me or is it about helping someone else?
All right, we have 10 minutes left. Let's see if there are any other last concepts we want to bring up. The questions for contemplation that we email out before the class that I want to talk about for a minute. Let's see. So we commonly use the terms good karma and bad karma. We talked about this last session, but it's worthwhile bringing up again. Just to clarify one last time that karma is judged by our own brain as being good or bad. It's simply a result of a previous action. And typically we label things that are unpleasant as bad and things that are pleasurable or pleasant as good karma. But it's simply a result of actions that we've set into motion. So now please.
Oh, I was just going to say, maybe we could talk just a minute about trying to help people.
Sure.
How do we help people when we see that they're suffering and that they're experiencing the results of some poor judgments or decisions that they made in the past?
And do we have the right to do that?
Do we have the right?
the first thing that comes to mind is people that are begging on the streets.
Yeah.
And you give them money, if so, you're probably going to give them drugs or alcohol, or you're going to actually, I had a guy come up to me one time and says, I'm hungry, will you feed me? I said, sure. I went to a restaurant and I fed him. I thought, it was only a short-term fix, but it was a fix.
That's
It
what
helped. Helped me feel better.
Mm-hmm.
See, and I understand that. I haven't, it's a personal thing that people on the street, I do give them money, and I don't care what they do with it. They're there, and I'm in my car or something. But it happened that years ago, I was on Flamingo going west, and this woman was 5 I was in the number 1 lane, and she was on the sidewalk. And you know how your eyes meet that split second that you know this person or there's something there. And we caught each other's eye, and she walked through gridlock, through 4 or 5 lanes, and she came over to me, and I gave her money, and she said, "God bless you," and I said, "No, God bless you." And I, I put the window up, and I started to get very emotional. So I asked Spirit, I said, "Was I that woman? Did I live like that at one point?" And I believe, me personally, that I did. So from that moment forward, in my mind's eye, in my heart, I helped, and I continue to do that. I have a little homeless fund, dollar bills, in the car that I just feel, I don't care what you do with it. I'm not, $1 is not going to support a fix, maybe several. It's my motive. It's from where my heart comes. And so, it's just.
I think you're right about examining your motive. If your motivation is to help, then whatever you do is perfectly fine. But some people give money because they feel guilty.
Oh,
I
yeah.
have money and this person doesn't, and I feel guilty unless I give it to
I
them.
would give him 100 then.
So Eugene and I used to own a business in one of our locations, was in an area of town where we had homeless people wander through our parking lot every night and would sleep behind the building at night. And we got to know quite a few of these people. We knew them personally. Sometimes we knew them, saw them over a period of 15 years.
Wow.
We knew their names, we knew their addictions, we knew their history, and we would talk to them. The one thing I found more than anything that they appreciated was being treated like a human being. Just that somebody actually cares about them, and doesn't judge them for their problems or their addictions or their shortcomings or failings. That meant more than anything to them. So I agonized for years about, do I give them money? Do I go buy them food? How do I help? And that's what I found was that if you honestly care about them and are doing the best you can and treat them like they're just fellow humans, that's all you need to do.
Let's look at a different type of situation. Maybe we're witnessing a dear friend or a family member who's in an abusive relationship. So back to the question of, do we swoop in and try to come in with guns blazing and change, kind of like what our country does to other countries? Do we do that, or what do we do to consciously help someone else? What's the highest minded way of assisting that loved one who's in an abusive relationship? Call the cops then.
Well,
Education?
Sure. Yeah, this is a very good example of, something even closer than what I was talking about when you're talking about friends or family members that are in abusive situations. It's very difficult, and sometimes the best you can do is to give suggestions and again, practice non-judgment. It's easy for us who are not involved in abusive relationships to look at them and say, get out of it. Just walk away.
We have to remember
They
that
can't always do that.
there is karma involved, though. That's the point here.
Yeah.
So yes, what we're saying is true. We have to remember that there is a reason that they're in the situation. That's the caveat.
Right, and how you break the link.
And sometimes,
An outside authority cannot break the link. That's the point.
Yeah.
Sorry.
sometimes even if they walk away from it, violence ensues.
Mhm.
So they're extremely volatile situations, and we can actually create more karma
Right.
by
I was gonna say,
injecting
can we do
ourselves
that?
into it.
We can.
Be helpful, give advice and support and love, and then kind of stay back and just see where you can help next.
And karmically, from a standpoint of judgment, we assume that they don't have any price to pay in the whole thing.
Yeah, exactly.
When we don't know that they weren't abusers in a previous lifetime, or that they did some karma
Very
with
good.
their clients,
Yeah.
or they're helping that person work out their karma.
Right.
Exactly.
For me, this is like the biggest dilemma with karma is it's like it practically, in my world, it has to be untouched because really it's something sort of pure and functioning. So how do we interact with it without changing, without assuming we know better than what the forces
Right.
at play are?
Exactly.
That's
It's,
the point.
it's kind of like our story about the starfish in our book about, the person who thinks they're helping sometimes is actually screwing up the natural process. So, and even within a single lifetime, sometimes we see that the person who was abused early in life often becomes the abuser in later when they have more power.
And I've seen that
So,
so many times.
It's, the cycle, the cycle just continues until somebody breaks it.
It's just like the karma that I'm experiencing with a brother. Okay, all I kept saying was I must have been really something in that other lifetime. I don't know what I did, or but it's not going to happen anymore.
Right, and
So
the
he's done
faster,
things, and I just go through it and practice. I did practice, and I do practice non-attachment.
that's all you can do.
Yeah. That's all right.
We done?
We are
we
close to
done?
being done.
Are we done yet?
Not what he meant. No, the link hasn't broken yet. We have more karma to work out. We have one more minute of karma to work out. So to wrap up, the key on how to eliminate our karma from our bag of tricks I mentioned. Yes, is to see our life situations and to work through them. How do you work through them? Unemotionally, with non-attachment, consciously, neutrally, with full awareness, accepting the situations we find ourselves in, not fighting them, understanding that we're here for a reason, and allowing them to play out consciously without fighting and resisting. That's how to eliminate karma and create a more peaceful existence in this world.
So one motto that Paul and I have is everything is exactly as it should be.
I have a plaque in my kitchen. I'm supposed to be exactly where I am.
Yeah, there you go.
I thought your black was, the time is now.
Well, that's
on his watch. He has a
That's
watch that
another-
says that now. What time is it? Now. All right, it's 4 o'clock. So
It's work.
the time is now.
Done
Yeah.
Oh, Rhino. Hey, Rhino, good.
Yeah,
Wow.
she says it's good to see you again. I wonder how she found us online. She might have just.
Nice.
Oh,
This
maybe
is like
she's on
the
our
book,
email.
Okay,
Right.
they're talking about you guys, and I don't know who you're talking about. It just reminds me of the book.
Oh,
When you read that, I'm like, wow,
Oh, like what's going on?
what's going on?
To our online students, thank you for being here. And to our in-person students, we're going to sign off. This was our 12th session. Oh, by the way, before I close this, we have one more meeting in September, and then no more for a while because things are happening in October. So one more. It'll be the 30th of September. We'll meet here, same time, same place, and then no meetings in October.
Okay.
And we'll figure out
Yeah,
November.
good.
We'll figure out November as it gets closer. All right,
Great,
signing off.
thank you.
thank you.
Thank you so much. You